from Sumter, and of course this firm is from Kershaw County. The lawyer legislator got on the action, and as soon as the lawyer legislator got on the action, or filed the action on March 17th, March 18th, they filed for continuance of the matter. And they filed for continuance based on the administrative order that the Chief Justice filed, indicating that lawyer legislators can get continuances if they request it. So, of course, that would have put the case off, but the lawyer legislator said, but I can try the case on any Monday or any Friday when I'm not in session. Be that as it may, the case was never able to be placed back on the docket. In the process of doing that, we believe that counsel filed his discovery motions for requests for productions and interrogatories. And then before they were responded to, he filed supplemental ones. Well, the supplemental interrogatory discovery and the original discovery, it pretty much requested the exact same thing. Because we believe that they were delaying, it delayed us in responding. It caused us to delay in responding to their discovery. However, once we responded to their discovery, I mean, it was just an overwhelming amount of stuff that they requested. It ended up being, as counsel indicated, 5,000 or more pages of documents, coupled with audio tapes from the county, tapes from the town council meetings. I mean, everything that they could possibly ask for, we gave to them. And in the process, he indicated that we responded to the supplemental discovery. Well, the supplemental discovery requested the same thing that was in the original discovery. We don't believe that there's anything else that we could provide. So what Counsel Morgan did was he requested that, and again, this is still between the January-July period of the year of 2022. What he requested was that we be more specific in responding. He indicated that he requested sketches, documents, other documents that relate to this matter. Well, in the original discovery and the disc that we provided him, it included all of those things. There was nothing additional. The fact that he asked for the same thing again in another discovery doesn't mean that we're supposed to be reproducing 5,000 or 10,000 more documents for him. But what we did was we attempted to respond to certain things, like he asked us for copies of the checks that they gave us, 1.5 million, 1.5 million. I mean, it was outrageous for them to ask us for those things, but we gave it to them. Then he asked us for the name of the bank. I mean, of course, on the back of the check that identifies the bank. We believe that this discovery request is being used to abuse the judicial process. He indicated that he asked for certain documents. We indicated that it was overburdensome, but those documents he requested was in the original discovery, even though he was asking for it in detail. We believe that this was a process that was used to delay this matter. Be that as it is.
Do you want to respond to the specific areas that they're claiming a deficit?
All right. I believe he indicated that he wanted the copies of any bids or contracts or plans or blueprints. We provided those things to him. We gave it to him in a disc, a memory stick, but it had those things involved. Now, right off the top of my head,
if you don't mind, sir, can we start with interrogatory number 9 that requested documents that reference the penny sales tax revenue?
Judge, I don't have the interrogatory right in front of me. Is it possible that the court could read it?
Sure. Well, the interrogatory is just a basic one that says, please set forth a list of photographs, plats, sketches, or other prepared documents in possession of plaintiff referencing or relating to penny sales tax revenue and the Capital Sales Tax Project Act. And I thought what I understood from Mr. Morgan was that there were a number of like 5,000 documents produced, but none specifically referring to the penny sales tax referendum.
Well, Judge, when we responded, giving them an indication of what the monies were spent on, all of the monies that came in, all of the monies that came in went out to contractors and to the contractor who I guess ultimately paid the subcontractors. Any documents that we got for that, copy, if he's asking us to name any documents or name any sketches that we would have used, would have been the project itself, sketches of the building that was used, that was being built or had begun being built. All of those things were part of what was in the disc. So we believe that we properly named those things in this interrogatory. We also provided those things in the request for production, being specifically referring to interrogatory number 9, that is.
So moving to request for production number 11, which I think you had started to touch on, all the documents pertaining to the bid and the construction of the fire police compound. What Mr. Morgan has specifically asked for is any contract with the actual contract with the contractor who built the building. And I mean, that would seem like a pretty fair request.
I would agree, Judge. I don't have a problem with supplementing and giving a copy of the contract to the county. I really thought we did, but I don't have a problem with doing it again.
Okay. Let's talk about request for production number 13. Was requesting minutes of the town of Andrews from 2010 to the present. And I think your specific objection was that going back 2010 to 2014 was too onerous on the town. You want to talk about that?
That's correct, Judge. I believe the request was asking for minutes and or tapes. And we, of course, I believe we gave some tapes to them. And when I say tapes, I'm talking about recordings. And we provided copies of the minutes for reasonable years. But going back to 2011, we thought it was just outrageous for us to have to provide that amount of minutes from that time period, and it would lead to no discoverable benefits to the defendant. Anything pertaining to the minutes during the early time periods would have nothing to do with this project. It would just be minutes where the town carried on its normal monthly meetings and our special call meetings, as the case. And what he was asking for, we believe, was just outrageously overburdensome for 10 or 11 years worth of minutes of meetings.
Well, I guess the argument is that this was being discussed back in 2012. I mean, it didn't just appear on the referendum without any prior discussion in 2014. So presumably there would have been some discussions, Mr. Morgan asserts, beginning in 2012 at least, before it appeared on the referendum in 2014.
Well, Judge, there would have been discussions, but that discussion would not have been discussions of the town council and our meetings. Now, the town had a group that would have had meetings and our discussions, but the town council itself would not have carried on any meetings. Where maybe if there was a meeting where they approved something, but there would not have been a meeting about the minutes of the meeting of his regular town council meetings would not have specifically been focused on this project, only just to approve if something was presented to it by any committees or for approving a project or presenting a project to the town. We believe that the old administrator for the county met with a group of town persons when all of the discussions were going on, but there was never anything pertaining to the actual minutes of the meeting involving this project. So just for us to produce that and our recordings of that, it was outrageously overburdensome.
Well, can we say that you're going to produce any minutes or other records of the town of Andrews between 2010 and 2014 that pertain in any way to the fire or police building?
Well, Judge, I can get with the mayor and the administrator for the 2010 to 2014 minutes, and we could provide them. I believe I'll use the word again, but we will agree to provide them again for that period, as opposed to 10 to 22.
Well, I'm sorry, I misunderstood. I guess I thought that you all had not produced anything from 2010 to 2014.
Judge, I believe any minutes that was produced covered only those periods, as opposed to 10 to 22, 2010 to 2022.
Okay, and my understanding, and maybe I misunderstood, was that you did produce between 2014 and 2000 present, maybe, but objected to the years of 2010 to 2014. Do I have that backwards, Mr. Morgan?
No, ma'am. Your Honor, you're absolutely correct. Again, we have not received any of the documents from 2010 to 2014. And as I heard Mr. Carter just mention, he said that there were some discussions and information that might have been brought by committees to the town during that time frame. And that's the exact information that we're trying to seek and get records of. And now that we understand, based upon today's hearing, that there was a committee, we'll be supplementing our discovery, requesting the committee information. But you are correct, Your Honor. We have not received anything from the years 2010 through 2014. That was the objectionable time frame that was presented to us.
So I'm not interested, and they're not interested in anything past 2014 because you've already produced that. So we would just be talking about between 2010 and 2014, any records pertaining to this project.
Okay. Your Honor, just to make sure that I understand you, you're saying produce minutes from 2010 to 2014 pertaining to this project, either by town council and or a committee. Am I correct?
Well, let me look back at what the request for production actually asked for. Okay, it says a complete copy of any and all minutes and agendas of any and all meetings of the Town of Andrews Town Council for 2010 through the present. So it's specifically asking for minutes and agendas of the Town of Andrews Town Council. What I'm saying is that I am telling you that you can produce between the years of 2010 and 2014 the minutes and agendas for any meetings that have anything to do with this project. So if there's no mention of the project, that's fine. If there's any mention of the project, whether that's a report being received from a committee or just any discussion at all that appears in the minutes, then or appears on the agenda, that would have to be produced.
Very good. We have no problems with that, Judge. Of course, we don't. Now,
okay.
Do you want me to respond to the next?
Sure. So the next one is request for production number 15 that asks for complete financial records from 2010 to the present.
All right, you're listening to the court hearing
All right, Your Honor.
between Andrews and Georgetown. I'm trying my best to get the feed up there so you can see it, but I got the audio
Financial
for you.
records in general.
Well, the request looks to me that it is finance records in general. I mean, it asks for a complete copy of any and all budgets, accounting records, audits, and finance reports for the town of Andrews. So I understand that you have objected to that on the grounds of it being overly broad. And so I just want to give you a chance to tell me what your feeling is on having to produce those materials.
Yes, Judge, again, it's overly broad and burdensome on a town with less than 8 employees to go back and just produce any and everything. I mean, because he's asking for financial records. I mean, that could mean copies of any checks that the town wrote from 2010 to present. It could mean copies of any requests for payments for things that have nothing to do with the project. If they're asking us for financial records that discuss the project or money spent on the project, I mean, that makes it easy if we're to produce it from 10 to present. That makes it easy for us to put a focus. But just to compile all of these documents, we'll be back before you under the complaint that we've provided them with 10,000 pages of documents. Because what they're requesting is just it's not like it's a small thin folder. We're talking about audits. Audits are large bound books. He's talking about financial records pertaining to checking statements or checking accounts. I mean, it's just an outrageous amount of stuff that he would be requesting on us. If he could have been more specific, it would have been easier just to provide the things. But he's just asking for, give me a chance to look through everything. And again, everything would not be relevant to the action that was filed. Everything that he's asking for would not be relevant to it. And it's just, we believe it to be a delaying tactic. Again, that's why I started out saying the things that they were requesting was a delaying tactic. Because at this point, when they requested these things and we had a hearing on these things, I mean, we were now under the January 1 through July 31. They don't have to go to court because they have a lawyer legislator on their team, who I might add has never been involved in this action. Has never been involved. So we believe that they use these things as a delaying tactic and that it has prevented us 2 years on an injunctive action, which should have been heard less than 60 to 90 days from once we filed it. 2 years later, and we still have not gotten closer to any hearing on this matter. And
Mr. Morgan, let me ask you, sir, because this does seem to me to be casting a very wide net to go back now 13 years. And, every financial record, I'm not entirely sure what the scope of that would be. Is there something, I'm thinking in terms of, the budget, the actual budget from those years. Here's the amount that we received in revenue. Here's the amount that we spent in each of these categories, so that y'all have an overall financial picture. But certainly, I can imagine that you want to sift through every statement from the bank accounts of, for various things for 13 years.
Yeah, to address that point, we'd be happy to limit that scope and would have happy to have had this discussion with Mr. Carter previously. Again, this is a discovery request that was filed 18 months ago, and I'm just now hearing today that is the specific reason. Your Honor, I could not have requested specific expenditures for the project during this time frame because the project didn't exist then. The purpose is, as the court just pointed out, I'm trying to find out what was the basis for the original request for the town on the capital project sales tax referendum for fire police complex. And Your Honor, we agree. If we could get copies of the budgets and the audit, that would probably be sufficient to allow us to determine what the town was spending on, whether it's the maintenance, the upkeep, expenditures for the underlying, the former building, the former property, and the reasons and basis it requested the specific amount of 1.5 which is subsequently ballooned in both scope and cost to 5.7 million roughly. So, Your Honor, we're happy if the court, and we'll work with the court, obviously, if we could just get the budget and the audit and potentially the finance reports, because that's just it's typically, I'm sure Your Honor and everybody on this call has looked at an account receivable or P&L report. That's something that's a click of a button. And these are all documents that are subject to the Freedom of Information Act in and of itself. So we're not trying to get something that any other member of the public would not be available to ask and request for. And we understand that this is a lawsuit that's been filed, and it just takes time. These matters take time. There's absolutely no dilatory actions on our part. I know Mr. Carter said, well, we brought in an attorney from Sumter. I'm based out of Camden. Well, it's because we have two offices. We actually have three offices, Your Honor. We have a Sumter office where Mr. Smith practices. I'm out of our Camden office. And I have associates from my Columbia office that work on this matter as well. So to address the court, Your Honor, if the court's so inclined, we'll be happy to withdraw the request for all financial accounting records and just go forward with the budgets and the audits. And we would like the finance reports themselves. Those are typically documents in my role as county attorney for Kershaw County, Fairfield County, Georgetown County, and others. Those are documents that are either prepared monthly or quarterly, and it's something where it's just, the accounts, it's already been done. We're not asking for any new work to be prepared. It's just a matter of allow us to review these documents so we can establish the basis for the initial request that the town made at the referendum stage.
Okay, Your Honor, if I could, if we were in a position to provide them financial records from 2010 till yesterday, there would be nothing in any of the records for our audits, our financial records for the operation of the town. There would be nothing from 2010 to yesterday that would deal with the project, because the project money is completely separate. It in no way mingles with any monies involving town government or any government. Those
I understand, Mr. Carter, and I don't think, I may be speaking out of turn. I don't think that's the reason. I think what Mr. Morgan was getting at is that they wanted to see what was the reason that the town needed the funds from the sales tax referendum. In other words, was there otherwise a budget in the money that could have been spent on fire and police? I think is what I understood. The gist of their argument that they need this is basically to see what the overall financial picture was for the town of Andrews, understanding that there's not going to be anything, certainly 2010 to 2014, there wouldn't be any expenditures. It's more to just get the overall picture of the finances for the town. So, I think that's relevant. I do appreciate that. I don't want to create some huge amount of work for you that is, just y'all chasing your tails and not really benefiting either side. So if there is some abbreviated manner that you can provide that, in other words, he's asked for the budget, the audit, and the finance report. I don't know if there is some overlap in those documents. In other words, if the audit really would have everything that you could possibly want, the budget, the actual budget at the end of the year, or if the finance report would encompass all this. In other words, you don't need to duplicate. So help me, and y'all may need to discuss this, what you can provide them that would be the least onerous on you, that would let them get the financial picture of what your revenue and expenditures were.
Okay. And the judge, as I understand it, and maybe what I think I'm hearing is the council is trying to determine if we were trying to get money from the sales tax. It sounds as though he's suggesting for other problems we have within the town. And
I don't. That was not the impression I got. The impression I got was basically to try to justify why you need sales tax money In other words, if you are operating on a shoestring budget and every dime of revenue that comes in is allocated to public services and other legitimate interests, and you just do not have the funds to be able to build the $5 million complex, that would be borne out, I would think, in the financial picture of the town, versus you have a budget surplus of $100,000 every quarter.
Okay, Judge.
And again,
This
I don't
judge
know
has not read the referendum,
y'all, other than what I have learned this morning. So I am sure Mr. Morgan will correct me if I'm wrong, but that's what I'm understanding, that they're trying to see what was the town's need prior to the referendum.
Okay, prior to the referendum.
Well, throughout, because here we are now in 2023. I understand the funds have been collected, and then there was a period of time where they're expended. So what they're asking for is 2010 to the present. I'm saying I think that's relevant, but I want it to be in the least burdensome manner on the town of Andrews. So how can we make that happen?
Okay, Your Honor, if I can just respond one more time by saying, again, each and every penny that is given to us is placed in a separate account. Each and every penny that is spent via a check of some sort. So you can see what we did with all monies that came from the county for the capital penny sales tax. Why do we want more money from them? I mean, there's a lot of reasons that contribute to it. In 2010, $1 million building would cost you close to $10 million. Today, I mean, housing and other building projects just went through the roof, which is no cause or anything that we've done. We've kept ours to a minimum that we could based on the economy. There was a projected position that the building would cost around $1 million. Phil Hemingway, county administrator, who at the time suggested that, but indicated that this was just a suggestion or an estimate of what the cost would be. Because of that discussion before the referendum, because of that discussion, we understood that it was just an estimate. But I guess the point I'm making, because of that discussion, the county of Georgetown passed an ordinance that says we're going to follow the state statute and fund this project. Georgetown County went further and said we will fully fund other projects, but this project, we will fully fund it. So if the building would have cost $1 million, well, even if it had cost $10 million, which it doesn't even cost half that, even if it would cost $10 million, the ordinance and the referendum say fully funded. They're bound to do that, regardless of what the town's other assets are, regardless of whether the town got a lot of money or whether the town is down in the red. Their ordinance and their voters says fully funded, so they're bound to it. All of the stuff that they're requesting from us, if we're able to give it to them, of course we would, but it would be irrelevant because they're bound by law, not by what we think the town council members are abusing their funds. They're bound by state law, their ordinance, and a referendum to fully fund this project. It is the same project that they started talking about in 2010, 11, 12, 13, 14. It is the same project today. The only difference is the economy made it cost more. So that's what got us to where we are now. And the county have all of this extra money from 27 million anticipated to 44 million. They got all of this extra money that's obligated. They have to obligate it to the project. All of the projects that
I'm following you, Mr. Carter. I follow you. Let me ask about the last section, that is how
the organization of the town.
16, a complete copy of all records relating to the organization of the town of Andrews and the installation, inspection, maintenance, and/or repairs of the systems utilized by the police and fire department.
Okay. Well, Judge, again, we're talking about a small town. There's a mayor, administrator, and maybe 4 full-time police officers. and some city workers that repair streets. But I mean, it's easy to see and know what it is, but it in no way, affects or relates to this project. I mean, it in no way would relate. I would keep in mind now, I know that the county has made an issue that, the mayor's office might be involved in the police and the fire department's building. Well, even if that was the case, the mayor and the administrator are the human resource officers. So they're part of that team. The mayor just doesn't walk around as a police officer or walk around as a fire department person, but he's their administrator, their human resource officer. They're managers of each and every one of them. And I only bring that up to say, I assume that was the reason for the organizational request, but it's for a small town of Andrews. There's not a lot involved in it. But we can certainly produce a chart that fits that out if that will satisfy the request, unless I'm missing something else. I know he's asking for something to do with the streets or sanitations or something to that effect. We can give the name of all of the employees, but none of them are paid from the capital penny sales tax dollar. That's just strictly the town's budget.
Okay, let me follow up, Mr. Morgan. Tell me if the referendum, if the voters voted to fully fund this project through the penny sales tax, what is the relevance of the town of Andrews' budget?
It goes back to the very underlying, because the voters approved the fire police complex, not a town hall complex that has subsequently been let out to bid. The town has overbroadened the scope of the project impermissibly in view of the light of the language of the referendum as approved by the voters. The reason why we were asking for budget materials back in the previous request, I apologize, number 15, and why we're asking for the information in 16 about the fire and police department, because we're trying that the town throughout the entirety of the process, when it put the information and had it approved by the referendum in 2014, it was previously discussed in 2020, 10, 11, and 12. We want to know what the records are that shows that the town knew that it had need for a fire police complex because it had various expenditures as it relates to repairs, maintenance, so on and so forth. Hence the reason why the town presented to the county via the referendum process. And I'm sure the court's aware there's citizens from all across the county. They identify projects. They prepare a list of projects to be submitted to council for ultimate approval. So this is kind of a situation where it's not top down. It's organized, but it's from the bottom up, so to speak. And so this tiny town.
And so I guess that sort of begs the question, though. Once it has been approved by the committee and it's gone out to the voters and they have voted to fully fund that project, then, what does it matter if they had a, $200,000 deficit in their budget or they had a $200,000 surplus in their budget, if that's what the referendum obligated the county to do?
And again, Your Honor, it goes back to the point where it demonstrates the intent of the town, which is subsequently changed from when the referendum was initially passed. We want to establish and prove that they knew all along that all they were asking for was funds to repair and replace a fire police complex. And if you look, and we have seen some of these drawings, not necessarily the contracts, I know the court's already considered that, but we can show where there was initial drawings that it was solely for.
If this is true, what he's saying, then why would they release on the screen right here? You see 1.5 million. Why would they release an additional 1.5 million if what this man, their lawyer, is saying is true?
There's another drawing that was the latest drawing that shows it all is one project. It's morphing. And so what we're trying to establish, Your Honor, is to prove that all along from the initial, it was solely fire and police. Hence the reason why we're seeking the budget information, because that would be the materials and the items that we believe that the committee that Mr. Carter's referred to, we're going to be seeking those documents as well, that they took that information and that was the reason why they requested $1.5 million. That's the reason that we're asking for this information.
Well, I mean, wouldn't it be easiest to get that from the committee that then refers the matters to the referendum? The committee that's seeking.
And Your Honor, we'll be happy. We were unaware until earlier this morning that there was a committee that brought those materials before the town in 2014. I hadn't seen those records, so I didn't know.
Well,
I don't.
And I'm sorry, I'm referring to the penny sales tax folks who consider all the projects that have been submitted
Correct.
and then recommend which ones should go on the referendum. I'm assuming there's a county committee that takes into
Correct.
account
And
all
we
those things.
make sure that we can compare the two and prove that this is the information that was submitted and then was ultimately considered. That's all the reason why we're seeking this information.
So I guess what I'm saying is, wouldn't that county committee that took up the penny sales tax, whatever was submitted to them is what they considered, is it not?
That
Or
would
does
be
not answer all of your questions.
correct. And I think that answers a majority in a lot of the questions, but I'm still trying to establish what the town committee presented to the town itself. And I want to see if there's a differentiation between the materials that made it from one, like I said,
It's not relevant.
way up. This is not information that, again, that they have to create, have to produce. These are all documents that they should be keeping pursuant to the Public Records Law and accessible through the Freedom of Information Act. And if we have to submit a Freedom of Information Act to receive these, then we'll go that route. We just wanted to try to take care of this inside of this litigation, understanding that the rules are such that it's pretty broad discovery, and it's the idea that it allows for all the parties to have all the cards on the table, like we previously discussed, John. That's the reason we're seeking these records.
Okay, so here's kind of where I'm standing at the moment. As far as interrogatory number 9, I do think that any documents referencing the penny sales tax revenue and penny sales tax project are certainly relevant and subject to discovery. So I would grant the motion to compel responses to interrogatory number 9. Number 11, dealing with the request to produce specifically any contract documents between the town and the contractor. I think you mentioned G&K Associates, whatever the name of the contractor was. I do think specifically any contract documents, anything related to the town of Andrews agreement with the contractor, that is discoverable. And so I'm granting with respect to that. As to request for production number 13, I'm granting it in part. I guess I would say that the town must produce records, that is minutes and agendas between 2010 and 2014 that mention or relate in any way to this project. Number 15, dealing with financial records from 2010 to the present. I am granting that, but only with respect to the budget. So in whatever form you want to present it, I don't want to create extra work for you. What I find you have to produce is something that shows the revenue received and the expenditures that went out. And that can be on an annual basis, on a quarterly basis. In other words, if you already have those materials, but it's done, annually, or if you already have those materials, but it's on a quarterly basis, either way, I'm trying to avoid you having to now create a document that's not already in existence. So if it's easier to do that in the form of a financial report, that's fine. If it's easier for you to produce that in an audit that's already, on a flash drive, however makes it easier for you, but something that shows on an annual basis revenue versus expenditures for the town of Andrews. And then lastly, request for production number 16. At this point, I'm only requiring you to produce an organizational chart for the town of Andrews that shows everybody's specific duties and I know that may change a bit from 2010 to the present, but limited to an organizational chart. And if you can specify for what years those things are in effect. So in other words, if there's an organizational chart for 2010, 2012, you hired a full-time HR person, etc. Can I ask, I think we probably need something more than a form order on this. Mr. Morgan, can I ask, sir, if you would prepare that proposed order, if you would email it to Mr. Carter, let him take a look at it, and then if you'll e-file it so that I know if it's in my e-filing queue that you all have reviewed it.
Certainly, Your Honor. We'll get that order prepared. We'll circulate with Mr. Carter, make sure that we're all singing from the same sheet of music, proverbially speaking, and then upon filing, that will be, in essence, after we've had a chance for myself and Mr. Carter to go back and forth if there's any concerns about or scope.
Yes, Judge, just for clarification, 2015, 2010 to present of the budget, are we making reference to the town's general budget or special project budget or both?
I'm not talking about penny sales tax funds. I'm just talking about the general budget of the town.
Okay, general funds. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you all.
Mr. Mayor, call me.
Okay, we're going to go back one to number 2 on the docket, which is Judy Law versus Judy Law and Peggy Gray. Mr. Bazinga. I see we also have Mr. Saxon, Mr. Miles. We have Ms. Law joining. I'm unmuting you, Ms. Law. If you want to go ahead and turn on your camera at this point, that would be great. For the record, this is case number 2023 CP 22-452. I'm going to pull your documents up here in front of me.
All right, so that was that hearing. I am going to figure out how that I'll be able to stream that so that you'll be able to see it. But there you go. Georgetown County just granted another set of and that's what it is, a bunch of lawyer talk. They've been granted another continuance in this matter. So it'll continue on. Some of the things that I did like hearing what the judge was talking about is when the town attorney got into the ordinance and she was asking Georgetown County's attorney about the ordinance and the will of the people and how is that being treated. So again, I am going to get as much of this out and be as transparent as possible when it comes to this video. I mean, this situation. But them wanting to know why, Andrews' budget, there's a bunch of stuff that's irrelevant that they were asking for. And that's why the judge narrowed it down to, specifics about this project. So again, this was this is an ongoing saga, and per the referendum, you heard the judge say it, so these people want to come in and say, well, the town was broke or whatever. They got $41 million. $41 million. So anyway, y'all have a great lunch. And again, I will figure out how I can stream it because I have it over here on, but I got to figure out how to stream this live.